In the penumbra of space, the diaries of the crew of the Phoenix resonated like chants of rebellion and audacity. Each written word revealed the soul of the humans who, with determination, transformed scrap into a symbol of resistance. Amidst the vastness of the galaxy, their notes blended with the essence of a controlled ruin strategy, capable of subverting ancient doctrines. The Delpan Empire trembled as it realized that its treaties of silence and oppression could not contain the flame of revolution. The pages recorded the subtlety of espionage and the vigor of a meticulous hunt, where each act of sabotage was also a cry for freedom. The narrative exposed the constant presence of a silent predator, observing the shadows of galactic politics with a sharp gaze. In every line, the genocide of ideas and the dark legacy of guilds and assassins perpetuating oppression were denounced. The theory of the enigma unfolded like a veiled invitation, challenging the universal accord and renewing the hope of the peacemakers. Patience transformed into a weapon, intertwining revenge and courage in the path of humans who would never bow down. Thus, the narrative of the diaries opened a pathway for unexpected alliances, heralding a hunt that would stretch across the farthest corners of the universe. In the notes of Mike Torres, the chief engineer, the rebellion of humans manifested with irony and precision. He transformed the alien reactor into a rebellious work of art, subverting the system with a controlled ruin strategy that defied all doctrine. Each entry pulsed with the energy of a revolt against the oppression imposed by the Delpan Empire, breaking the Treaty of Silence. With the patience of a bounty hunter, he unraveled the secrets that fueled espionage and sabotage. His writing turned the universal accord into something questionable, exposing the consequences of an empire founded on destruction. Guilds and assassins once feared became insignificant shadows in the face of the determined peacemakers. Each mark in his diary revealed a new facet of an invisible war where galactic politics was rewritten with boldness. The theory of the enigma was present in every detail, inviting an incessant hunt for freedom. The revolt emerged from every paragraph, denouncing the genocide of old orders and the oppression that plagued civilizations. And so, Torres's records marked the beginning of a saga that would transcend time and space. In the maintenance logs, Lieutenant Avery Kwan transformed the routine of the Phoenix into an epic of innovation and resistance. With poetic grace, she described how humans converged technique and passion to turn failures into brilliant acts of sabotage. The controlled ruin strategy emerged in her words as a remedy against the oppression of the Delpan Empire and its outdated doctrines. Each repair was made with the patience of a master, challenging the treaty of fear and breaking the silence imposed by tyranny. Her narrative fervently denounced the genocide of ideas that threatened to suffocate the revolutionary spirit of the peacemakers. Among the lines, espionage transformed into art, making room for alliances that united bounty hunters and fearless warriors. Galactic politics, once static, renewed itself with each daring gesture and every word that unraveled the old ties of oppression. The theory of the enigma emerged as a whisper, urging everyone to unite against an empire that could no longer silence the revolt. The consequences of each act of sabotage echoed as powerful reminders that freedom is won with courage. And thus, the maintenance of the Phoenix became a sacred ritual, where each mark was a promise of resistance. In the heat of battle, Commander Sarah Vasquez painted a vibrant picture of confrontations and strategies that defied oppression. Her narrative, filled with humor and firmness, turned each clash into an ode to human resilience. Amidst the fury of war, the controlled ruin strategy shone like a guiding star, dismantling the doctrine of fear. Each engagement was a dance between sabotage and espionage, where the hunt for freedom assumed epic proportions. Enemy fire was avoided with the precision of a silent predator, always acting with shrewd patience. Guilds and bounty hunters were portrayed as mere obstacles against the vigor of determined peacemakers. The Delpan Empire saw its authority wane in the face of the humans' revolt, who challenged every treaty of silence. Galactic politics became a battleground where unusual alliances flourished, and destruction transformed into rebirth. Each word from Sarah denounced the consequences of millennia of oppression, echoing the promise of vengeance. And amidst the echoes of battle, her narrative left a subtle invitation for the hunt to never cease. The diaries unveiled intimate stories that overflowed with the essence of humans and their unwavering will to resist. Each record was a testament to the ability to transform scrap into legend, challenging the Delpan Empire and its oppression. The controlled ruin strategy emerged as a hymn, breaking the Treaty of Silence and igniting the revolt with intensity. On the pages, the genocide of ideas was exposed, and the doctrine of fear faded before bold acts of sabotage. Peacemakers and bounty hunters united in a powerful alliance, defying the established universal accord. Each act of espionage revealed the fragility of guilds and assassins, who in past times sustained an oppressive empire. The theory of the Enigma intertwined with galactic politics, weaving a network of consequences that propelled the war. The narrative overflowed with the patience and revenge of humans, who saw in the hunt a chance to rewrite their destiny. Each word pulsed with the promise of a revolt that knew no limits or barriers. Thus, the pages of the diaries remained open, inviting exploration of new horizons of freedom. Among the whispers of hyperspace, the records of the diaries revealed themselves as poetic chronicles of the Phoenix's backstage. The writing, blended with humor and melancholy, reflected the essence of humans who refused to succumb to oppression. Each paragraph was infused with a controlled ruin strategy that dismantled the Treaty of Fear and the archaic doctrine. In the spaces between the lines, the patience of the peacemakers met the audacity of the bounty hunters, forming unexpected alliances. Espionage unfolded as a subtle art, opening gaps in galactic politics and weakening the Delpan Empire. The theory of the Enigma presented itself as a living puzzle, instigating every reader to question the consequences of destruction. Each record denounced the genocide of ancient civilizations and the silence imposed by relentless guilds and assassins. Humans transformed every act of sabotage into a manifesto, reconfiguring the very essence of war. The narrative pulsed with the energy of a hunt that would never end, always in search of justice and freedom. Thus, each page of the diaries proclaimed that the behind-the-scenes story of the Phoenix was merely the prelude to a new beginning. In the Chronicles of the Phoenix, the records emerged as living testaments to the courage of humans amid the stellar chaos. Each page exuded the essence of a strategy of controlled ruin, challenging the oppression imposed by the Delpan Empire. The writing flowed with the naturalness of patience, turning each act of sabotage into a lesson and inspiration. The Treaty of Silence dissolved with every new entry, replaced by the fervor of espionage and the clarity of revolt. Amid the vastness of the galaxy, guilds and bounty hunters appeared as shadows against the light of the peacemakers. The doctrine of ancient times was called into question as alliances emerged to reshape galactic politics. The theory of Enigma intertwined with the art of sabotage, creating a mosaic of consequences and challenges. Each record reverberated like a scream of revenge and hope, breaking the barriers of an oppressive empire. The hunt for freedom manifested in every line, driving a revolt that transformed destruction into rebirth. Thus, the diaries left a luminous trail, hinting that new alliances and challenges awaited beyond the horizon. Behind the scenes of the Phoenix, the crew's documentation transformed into a star map, filled with emotions and bold strategies. The prose of the records combined humor and seriousness, tracing the journey of humans defying the Delpan Empire and its oppression. Each writing was imbued with the doctrine of revolt, where patience and espionage formed an unbreakable alliance. The treaties of fear and silence were shattered by words that resonated with the strength of a silent predator. The strategy of controlled ruin emerged with clarity, converting acts of sabotage into instruments of liberation. Guilds and assassins were evoked as shadows of the past, while the hunt for freedom took on audacious contours. The theory of Enigma and the invisible law of war revealed secrets that guided the humans' hunt and revenge. Each record denounced genocide and oppression, paving the way for new civilizations to rise amid destruction. The alliances forged in the shadows transformed devastation into a prelude for an era of freedom and wisdom. And so, the diaries concluded without a definitive ending, leaving a whisper in the cosmos suggesting that the saga was just beginning. In the shadows of the cosmos, the news of the audacious victory of humans echoed like a silent thunder, reverberating through countless stars. The galaxy, vast and full of secrets, awakened in response to a roar that challenged millennial oppression. The Delpan Empire trembled as the revolt spread, fueled by a strategy of controlled ruin that ignited hearts. Every corner of distant worlds resonated with the feeling that the ancient doctrine was about to disintegrate. Alliances formed in the webs of galactic politics, where espionage and sabotage intertwined in murmurs of hope. Guilds and bounty hunters watched quietly as the prelude to a war that defied the oppression imposed by ancient treaties unfolded. A silent predator moved among the shadows, symbolizing the determination of the peacemakers and the vengeance boiling in the hearts of the insurgents. The narrative of the galaxy was penned with ink of rebellion, denouncing the genocide of ideas and the silence forced by treaties of fear. The patience of humans was evident in every action, like an invisible law governing the awakening of new civilizations. As the Universal Accord and the Treaty of Silence were contested, the revolt transformed the empire of oppression into mere dust of the past. The whispers of the galaxy spread in waves, carrying news of the audacious deeds of humans to each distant planet. In forgotten worlds, the doctrine that once maintained order morphed into a murmur in the face of the power of revolt. Civilizations, once subjugated, awakened to the reality that the empire of oppression was in decline. The strategy of controlled ruin inspired sabotage movements, where each act was a direct challenge to the Delpan Empire. Among the stars, the theory of the enigma came to life, suggesting that the truth hidden in the cosmos was more complex than previously imagined. Assassins and guilds, once feared for their cruelty, found themselves surpassed by the collective strength of peacekeepers in a new era. The Treaty of Fear began to unravel, giving way to an incessant hunt for justice and freedom. The consequences of each action reverberated throughout galactic politics, provoking a revolt that forged new alliances. Each act of espionage unveiled a fragment of a hidden story, where the patience and vengeance of humanity shone brightly. In the silences between, the Universal Accord emerged as a vestige of times when destruction and oppression reigned mercilessly. The galaxy, vast and mysterious, witnessed the rebirth of an indomitable force that arose from the hearts of humans. The Delpan Empire, fearful of the impending revolt, saw its foundations crumble before a strategy of controlled ruin. News spread like wildfire, reaching every corner of civilizations longing for freedom. Galactic politics transformed into a chessboard, where every move was marked by acts of sabotage and revenge. Alliances were forged between peacekeepers and bounty hunters, uniting forces against an empire that had long held dominion. The ancient doctrine that sustained the Treaty of Silence was now exposed under the light of revolution and truth. The patience of humanity stood as a beacon, guiding the hunt that emerged with the ferocity of a silent predator. The destruction of old structures was inevitable, and every consequence of the ancient regime transformed into a cry for freedom. Assassins who once operated in darkness became part of a larger narrative, where the genocide of ideas was fervently resisted. Amid a web of espionage and alliances, the theory of the enigma illuminated the secrets of the Universal Accord and its flaws. In distant worlds, the reaction to humanity's victory resonated like a whisper through planetary rings. Each planet felt the impact of a revolt that transcended the oppression and oppressive doctrines of the Delpan Empire. The strategy of controlled ruin inspired acts of sabotage that shattered the Treaty of Silence, echoing across the vastness of space. Galactic politics reconfigured with the formation of new alliances, where every movement was measured with patience and precision. The theory of the enigma served as a guide for insurgents, revealing hidden secrets and challenges that came with profound consequences. Guilds and bounty hunters, once allies of fear, now turned against the oppression that kept the empire in control. Espionage became an art, and every messenger carried the message that humanity's revolt was irreversible. Civilizations awoke to the truth, confronting the Treaty of Fear and the destruction promised by the Delpan Empire. The hunt for justice gained momentum, and every step taken by the peacekeepers resonated like a blow against the doctrine upheld by the empire. In every corner of the galaxy, the revolt transformed into a symphony of actions that, with humor and determination, heralded a new era. The pulse of the stars carried the news that humanity's victory was not mere chance but the harbinger of a new chapter. In the vastness of the galaxy, the echo of the revolt found refuge in every civilization, challenging the established order. The Delpan Empire, once feared, began to feel the cracks in its structure, shaken by the strategy of controlled ruin. The hunt for freedom ignited the hearts of all who lived under the yoke of the treaty of fear and oppression. Each act of sabotage and every whisper of espionage transformed into instruments of calculated and precise revenge. Galactic politics was shaped by alliances emerging with the patience of determined warriors and the fury of a silent predator. The doctrine that upheld the Universal Accord and the Treaty of Silence was put to the test, revealing its frailties. The consequences of human actions spread like waves, touching each world with the promise of a new era. Guilds and bounty hunters found themselves on the side of justice, united against the genocide of old rules. The revolt pulsed with the force of a silent war, transforming the destruction of the past into hope for the future. In the forgotten corners of the galaxy, the reaction to humanity's victory became an epic that defied oppression. Each civilization, feeling the impact of the crumbling empire, united in a hunt for freedom and redemption. The Delpan Empire, wrapped in an uncomfortable silence, watched helplessly as the revolt gained body and soul. The strategy of controlled ruin manifested in every act of sabotage, disintegrating the doctrine that sustained tyranny. Espionage became a sacred ritual, revealing secrets that undermined the foundations of the Treaty of Fear. The peacekeepers, with their legendary patience, served as the link between humans and the alliances emerging from the shadows. Each coded message carried the promise that revenge would be as precise as the strike of a silent predator. Galactic politics molded itself as the consequences of the revolt spread, reformulating the Universal Accord. Guilds and bounty hunters reassessed their loyalty, inspired by the audacity of humans and the clarity of the theory of the Enigma. Thus, the galaxy vibrated with the energy of a revolt that transformed the empire of oppression into a relic of shadows. On every planet, the reaction was a mosaic of emotions, where the pain of oppression met the flame of hope. The doctrine that once maintained the silence of the peoples was now broken by the strength of humans in their relentless pursuit. The destruction of the old regime manifested in acts of sabotage, marking a turning point that paved the way for new alliances. The Treaty of Fear and Silence was dismantled by a revolt expressing itself with the patience of determined warriors. Espionage became a tool for change, exposing the flaws of the Delpan Empire and the weaknesses of galactic politics. Every consequence of a bold action reverberated, shaping the future of civilizations longing for freedom. The peacekeepers stood out as beacons amid the destruction, guiding humanity along paths of justice and renewal. The strategy of controlled ruin elevated each act of revolt to a masterpiece, weaving the narrative of revenge and redemption. Guilds and bounty hunters, once feared, now found new reasons to unite in pursuit of a collective hunt. Thus, the galaxy became a stage where humanity's revolt transformed into an eternal anthem against the empire of oppression. The galaxy's reaction was a symphony of emotions, with each note representing the yearning for justice and transformation. Among the stars, humans rose like a silent predator, determined to shake the very foundations of the ancient empire. The strategy of controlled ruin echoed across the planets, inspiring acts of sabotage that shattered the old doctrine. The Treaty of Silence was broken with the force of a revolt that spread, enveloping civilizations and improbable alliances. Each movement was calculated with the patience of warriors who understood the theory of the Enigma and its implications. Espionage manifested as an invisible thread, connecting the hearts of the peacemakers to the essence of freedom. Galactic politics was reconfigured with each bold act, and the consequences of the old treaties were laid bare without mercy. Guilds, bounty hunters, and assassins found themselves confronted by a rebellion that knew no bounds. The Delpan Empire, which once ruled with an iron fist, now found itself dissolved among the shadows of destruction and vengeance. Thus, the galaxy pulsed with the energy of an impending war, where every action taken by humans was a harbinger of a new dawn. Among the nebulas, the message of revolt reached every corner, awakening civilizations long dormant under the yoke of oppression. The universal accord, once unshakable, revealed its cracks in the face of the strategy of controlled ruin and the determination of humans. Each act of sabotage was a cry that echoed in the vastness of space, challenging the doctrine that upheld the Treaty of Silence. Espionage became a tool of power, uniting alliances and exposing the Delpan Empire's weaknesses with precision. The peacemakers, with their legendary patience, wove webs of vengeance and reconstructed galactic politics on new foundations. The theory of the Enigma revealed itself in every move, like a secret guiding the hunt against the destruction of the old regime. Guilds and bounty hunters found new reasons to unite, inspired by the brilliance of humans awakening the galaxy. The revolt materialized in actions that transcended fear, transforming the genocide of ideas into a fresh start of hope. Each consequence of the battles fought became a landmark in history, challenging the Empire and its obsolete doctrines. And so, the cosmos resonated with the promise that, as long as the hunt for freedom persisted, the galaxy would never fall silent. At the frontiers of the unknown, the awakening of the galaxy felt like a song transcending time and space. The human revolt ignited the hearts of civilizations, which united in a hunt against oppression and destruction. The Delpan Empire, shaken by a strategy of controlled ruin, saw its power dissipate amid the echoes of revolt. Galactic politics transformed with each act of espionage and sabotage, forging alliances that challenged ancient doctrines. The theory of the Enigma, with its invisible law, guided the steps of the peacemakers as they walked with patience and courage. Assassins and guilds, who once served the Treaty of Silence, now sought refuge in the unity of bounty hunters. Each consequence of the acts of revolt resonated like a call to vengeance, dismantling the empire that once seemed invincible. The revolt turned destruction into a prelude for a new era, where the genocide of old rules was surpassed by hope. Humans stood as a silent predator, making the galaxy a stage for war and bold conquests. And while the cosmos celebrated this metamorphosis, a subtle whisper suggested that the next stage, the final confrontation, was slowly approaching. The Phoenix advanced through the depths of the galaxy, where the silence of space was shattered by the roar of engines and the promise of revolt. The humans, with unwavering courage, faced the oppressive empire that had long disseminated the doctrine of oppression. Before a colossal alien dreadnought measuring 2.5 kilometers, the strategy of controlled ruin began to take shape. Like a silent predator, the Phoenix drew near with the cunning of bounty hunters and the patience of peacemakers. Every maneuver was an act of sabotage against the genocide of ideas, a response to the consequences of a flawed universal accord. The enemy ship, a symbol of destruction, bore the marks of ancient alliances and the treaty of fear imposed by the Delpan Empire. The theory of the Enigma guided each tactic, revealing the invisible law that governed the war among civilizations. Amid espionage and coordinated attacks, the Phoenix demonstrated that neither guilds nor assassins could halt the advance of humans. The dreadnought, once an inactive monster, now became the target of a meticulous and relentless hunt. Tension filled the space as the Phoenix boldly announced that the empire of oppression was about to be dismantled. In the corridors of the dreadnought, alien engineering trembled before the presence of humans who saw sabotage as a form of vengeance. The strategy of controlled ruin revealed itself in every shot, as the Phoenix launched an attack that defied the established galactic politics. Each electromagnetic beam fired was a blow of patience and cunning, marking the beginning of the destruction of the hostile empire. Communication among the peacemakers was a constant whisper, echoing the doctrine that revolt was inevitable. Unlikely alliances emerged, bringing together bounty hunters, guilds, and even silent predators who had once hidden away. The Treaty of Silence shattered amid explosions and the sound of destruction, while the universal accord crumbled like a house of cards. In a bold gesture, the Phoenix injected reverse engineering viruses, triggering a sabotage that was the antithesis of the Treaty of Fear. Each consequence of the attack was studied with precision, demonstrating that espionage had become a lethal weapon in times of war. Galactic politics, once dominated by a tyrannical empire, now saw its control wane before the strength of humans. With the promise of a new dawn, the Phoenix issued a warning. "We have given you a chance to respect us. Now you will learn to fear us." The Phoenix, propelled by the faith of the peacemakers, transformed every challenge into an opportunity to break away from the Treaty of Fear. In the vastness of the galaxy, humans showed that neither the oppression of the Delpan Empire nor the doctrines of ancient assassins could contain their revolt. The dreadnought, a symbol of destruction and archaic galactic politics, began to succumb before the patience of the bounty hunters. Each coordinated attack was a manifesto against the genocide of ideas and against the silence imposed by guilds and obsolete treaties. Espionage was present in every circuit, revealing that the theory of the Enigma was the key to dismantling an oppressive empire. Amidst light and shadows, the Phoenix employed energy-cutting tactics, disabling reactors with the precision of a dormant predator lying in wait. The hunt for the dreadnought was not merely a battle, it was a symbol of revenge against a history of oppression and destruction. The peacekeepers, with their strategic calmness, reshaped galactic politics with each explosion that echoed across the vastness of space. Every alliance formed was a step toward building a new universal accord, where peace would spread free from the chains of tyranny. Thus, the Phoenix moved forward, transforming pain and oppression into a luminous revolt that ignited the hope of civilizations. The confrontation reached its peak as the Phoenix prepared for the final attack, a deadly dance of sabotage and strategy. In the darkness of the dreadnought, the defense systems trembled under the subtle touch of human espionage and the silent predator. Every line of code injected was a declaration of war against the doctrines that upheld the oppressive empire. The strategy of controlled ruin unfolded in beams of energy that sliced through auxiliary reactors with surgical precision. Bounty hunters, in perfect sync with the peacekeepers, orchestrated an offensive that defied the Treaty of Silence. The doctrine of fear, which had long kept civilizations in captivity, began to crumble before the cunning of humanity. Each explosion was a poem of destruction, a verse that spoke of revenge and the inevitability of revolt. Galactic politics bowed before the magnitude of the attack, witnessing the collapse of an empire that considered itself invincible. Devastation transformed into art, where each act of sabotage told a story of alliances forged in adversity. And at the heart of the confrontation, the Phoenix shouted its final warning, making it clear that the hunt for oppression was relentless. Amidst the controlled chaos, the Phoenix demonstrated that humans were capable of turning destruction into renewal. Every movement was calculated with the patience of a strategist who understood the invisible law governing war. The dreadnought, once a fortress of oppression, had become a battlefield where doctrine became obsolete. Espionage, like a subtle thread, connected each attack, revealing the secrets of a decaying empire. The strategy of controlled ruin materialized in an energy cut that disabled reactors with lethal precision. Guilds and assassins, fearful of change, found themselves powerless before the inexorable advance of the peacekeepers. The human revolt was a hymn to freedom, a manifesto condemning genocide and oppression without mercy. Galactic politics, which once favored the Delpan Empire, now found itself reconfigured by the alliances of insurgents. Every consequence of the attacks was studied and celebrated, as if each fragment of destruction were a victory in the hunt. And as the dreadnought disintegrated, the Phoenix echoed the message that the future belonged to the humans and their revolt. In the decisive moment, the Phoenix launched the final blow, a symphony of energy and courage that shook the galaxy. The ghost-disabling tactic was executed with mastery, infiltrating enemy systems with reverse-engineered viruses. Each trace of espionage revealed the dreadnought's weak points, as if the theory of the Enigma whispered its secrets. The energy cut, inspired by mining lasers, disabled auxiliary reactors with the precision of a silent predator. The strategy of controlled ruin reached its zenith as the Phoenix orchestrated a devastating attack that left the Empire unable to respond. The bounty hunters and peacekeepers, in perfect sync, celebrated each act of sabotage as a verse of revenge. The doctrine of fear and the Treaty of Silence disintegrated before an offensive that transformed galactic politics. Each alliance formed grew stronger with the final blow, uniting civilizations against an empire that could no longer impose oppression. The repercussions of the attack echoed throughout the galaxy, leaving a trail of destruction that inspired revolt and hope. And with a cry of victory, the Phoenix proclaimed its warning. "We gave you a chance to respect us. Now you will learn to fear us." The final confrontation revealed the power of humanity, transforming war into a spectacle of intelligence and audacity. The dreadnought, once a symbol of destruction, succumbed to the precision of a strategy that combined espionage and sabotage. Each shot from the railguns was a poem of revenge, composing the symphony of an empire in ruins. The theory of the Enigma guided the attacks, showing that the invisible law of war was written by the peacekeepers and bounty hunters. The silent predator residing within the Phoenix struck with the coldness of an assassin, breaking the treaty of fear with every blow. Galactic politics reconfigured itself with each explosion, as alliances and civilizations united to overthrow an oppressive empire. Each act of sabotage was a scream against the doctrine that sustained oppression, transforming the hunt into art. Assassins and guilds, once feared, now appeared as mere shadows before the strength of humans in revolt. The consequences of energy-cutting tactics and railguns were measured in every inch of destruction on the dreadnought's hull. And so, the Phoenix, with patience and determination, made it clear that its hunt against the empire of oppression was relentless. With the dreadnought on the brink of implosion, the Phoenix demonstrated that humanity's vengeance was the antithesis of the old regime. The doctrine of silence and the treaty of fear faded before the power of a controlled ruin strategy that ignited the galaxy. Every electromagnetic beam fired reflected the galactic politics reconfigured by the peacekeepers and emerging alliances. Espionage became a mechanism of precision, dismantling the Empire's infrastructure with the theory of the Enigma. The bounty hunters celebrated the destruction as a victory against historical genocide and oppression. The Phoenix advanced with the grace of a silent predator, showing that guilds and assassins could not halt the awakening of humanity. Every energy cut was a declaration that the Empire, once thought invincible, was actually vulnerable. The consequences of the final blow resonated as a lesson for all civilizations suffering under the oppression of the Delpan Empire. The revolt, transformed into an art of war, inspired new alliances and rekindled hope among the oppressed. And with a cosmic roar, the dreadnought shattered into a spectacle of destruction, announcing that humanity's hunt had reached its peak. When the final implosion was at hand, every spark of energy seemed to sing the victory of humanity over tyranny. The Delpan Empire, powerless against a strategy of controlled ruin, watched its power crumble in the vastness of the galaxy. The doctrine that upheld the treaty of silence and fear dissipated like cosmic dust, scattered by the stellar winds. Each explosion was a testament to the patience and skill of the peacemakers, who transformed destruction into redemption. Galactic politics became a battlefield where alliances strengthened and civilizations were reborn amid chaos. The silent predator residing in the Phoenix demonstrated that, even in the face of genocide and oppression, revolt was inevitable. Guilds and bounty hunters, once feared, now found themselves powerless against the cunning of humans in their relentless hunt. Espionage and sabotage intertwined, creating a symphony of revenge that echoed through every corner of the Empire. Each act of courage was measured in consequences, marking the end of an era of oppression and the beginning of a new doctrine. And as the dreadnought disintegrated into wreckage, the message of the peacemakers resonated throughout the galaxy. Now, you will learn to fear us. In the aftermath of the confrontation, the Phoenix hovered majestically over the ruins of the dreadnought, a symbol of humanity's revolt. Every fragment of the fallen ship was a reminder that oppression and the treaty of fear no longer had a place in the galaxy. The strategy of controlled ruin, executed with lethal precision, made clear the consequences for the Delpan Empire. Alliances forged during the war demonstrated that galactic politics was transforming through the power of espionage and sabotage. The peacemakers, with their patience and determination, rose as guardians of a new era of freedom. The doctrine of the ancient oppressors melted away in the flames of revolt that ignited every corner of the galaxy. Each attack, measured through the theory of the Enigma, was a testament to humanity's vengeance against genocide and oppression. Guilds, bounty hunters, and even silent predators united against the empire that had long dominated. The phoenix, with a powerful roar, reaffirmed that the hunt for freedom was eternal and that the destruction of the old regime was merely the beginning. Thus, the final confrontation transformed into legend, an immortal hymn echoing throughout the galaxy, calling new civilizations to join the revolt. The legend of the Phoenix emerged from the ashes of rebellion with a force that defied the very gravity of the galaxy. The humans, imbued with courage and patience, wrote their history with the indelible ink of vengeance. Each act of sabotage and espionage became an epic verse that toppled the oppression of the Delpan Empire. The strategy of controlled ruin proved that the doctrine of fear and the treaty of silence could not contain the flame of revolt. The Phoenix became the supreme symbol of a relentless quest for freedom that crossed civilizations and forged unexpected alliances. Amid the echoes of destruction and rebirth, the theory of the Enigma guided the steps of the peacemakers and bounty hunters. Guilds and assassins, once agents of oppression, now found themselves lost in the shadow of an empire disintegrating. Galactic politics witnessed the rise of a new era, where each consequence of war resonated with justice. The invisible law governing the universe bent before the magnitude of an unyielding revolt. Thus, the legend of the Phoenix solidified as an eternal anthem to humanity's resistance, heralding a future where freedom was the only truth. In the annals of the galaxy, the story of the Phoenix was sung by poets and strategists who admired the audacity of humans. The destruction of the old empire symbolized triumph over the genocide of ideas and the oppression imposed by ancient treaties. Each scar left by the Delpan Empire was a memory of a revolt that transformed pain into lessons of courage. The obsolete doctrine that once upheld the treaty of fear was eclipsed by the light of vengeance and wisdom. The silent predator guiding the Phoenix embodied the strategy of controlled ruin and the patience of the peacemakers. In every battle, the art of espionage wove alliances between bounty hunters and reborn civilizations. Guilds, once operating in the shadows, joined the revolt and found redemption in the fall of a tyrannical empire. Galactic politics, reconfigured by the power of humans, showed that every act of sabotage marked a new chapter in the journey to freedom. The theory of the Enigma unfolded in secrets that propelled an unending hunt against oppression. Thus, the Universal Accord transformed into a relic of the past, while the legend of the Phoenix inspired future generations. The legacy of the Phoenix was woven into every fiber of the galaxy, pulsating with the energy of a revolt that would never fade. The humans, steadfast and resilient, turned each act of espionage into a weapon against oppression and genocide. The war against the Delpan Empire left a trail of destruction that transmuted into hope for forgotten civilizations. Every alliance forged in the shadows proved that galactic politics could be rewritten with justice. The strategy of controlled ruin, carried out with the patience of the peacemakers, marked the end of an era of treaties and fears. The inactive predator that once observed from afar rose as the guardian of a new doctrine of freedom. Assassins and guilds, transformed by revolt, found redemption in the hunt aimed at toppling the empire. The doctrine of silence and fear was replaced by a symphony of espionage and sabotage orchestrated by humans. Each consequence of the battles was celebrated as a step toward a future where oppression would no longer reign. And the legend of the Phoenix, inscribed in the Universal Accord of this new era, remained a beacon for all the oppressed. Among the stars, the legend of the Phoenix flourished as a testament to human strength in the face of adversity. The revolt against the Delpan Empire turned into a saga in which every act of sabotage became an epic verse. The patience of the peacemakers manifested in every move, revealing the essence of the strategy of controlled ruin. Galactic politics, once governed by fear and silence, was subverted by a hunt that united civilizations in new alliances. Each union forged represented a victory against genocide and oppression, illuminating the far reaches of the galaxy. The doctrine that upheld the Treaty of Fear fell before a revolt that transcended the Empire's limits. Bounty hunters, with cunning and determination, contributed to the fall of old regimes. The theory of the Enigma revealed itself in strategies of espionage, connecting each act of sabotage to inevitable vengeance. The silent predator, once elusive, now led humanity with firmness and courage, Thus, the legend of the Phoenix solidified, not as an end, but as a harbinger of a new era of freedom. The grandeur of the Phoenix's legacy was celebrated in every corner of the galaxy, where revolt transformed pain into hope. Immortal in their struggle, humans saw the strategy of controlled ruin as the key to liberating oppressed civilizations. Each act of espionage became a note in the symphony of sabotage that toppled the Empire of Fear. The Delpan Empire, a symbol of oppression, disintegrated before the unyielding force of the peacemakers and emerging alliances. The doctrine of silence was shattered by a collective cry for vengeance and justice, echoing through the vastness of the universe. Guilds and bounty hunters united to turn destruction into a glorious rebirth. The Treaty of Fear, once dreaded, proved fragile in the face of the insurgent truth. Every consequence of war contributed to the construction of a renewed universal accord, founded on freedom. The theory of the Enigma unfolded in secrets that propelled the hunt against the Empire's shadows, and thus, the legend of the Phoenix remained alive, inciting future revolts and the eternal fight for justice. The narrative of the Phoenix spread like a whisper of hope among the stars of the galaxy. Each word, imbued with courage, reminded humanity that revolt was the seed of transformation. The strategy of controlled ruin, applied with mastery, dismantled the Delpan Empire's oppression with precision. Galactic politics, ever-changing, witnessed the fall of one empire and the rebirth of civilizations. The peacemakers, with their endless patience, stood as guardians of a new era of alliances and freedom. The art of espionage connected hearts and minds in a hunt that transcended the limits of time. Each act of sabotage was a cry for revenge against the genocide of ideas and the oppression that reigned supreme. The doctrine fueling the Treaty of Silence was toppled by the force of human unity. The theory of the Enigma revealed itself in every gesture, showing that true freedom lay in resilience. And so, the legacy of the Phoenix endured as an eternal flame, lighting the path for the future. The legend of the Phoenix reverberated through the centuries, transforming the history of humanity into an immortal epic. Each battle fought, marked by acts of espionage and sabotage, left an indelible mark on the galaxy. The Delpan Empire, once a symbol of oppression, saw its doctrine surpassed by the force of revolt. Bounty hunters and peacemakers walked side by side, united by a strategy of controlled ruin. Galactic politics reconfigured with every alliance forged, reflecting the change in a universal accord. The Treaty of Fear dwindled before the determination of humans confronting genocide with courage. Guilds, once shadowy, transformed into allies in the quest for justice, nourished by a new doctrine. Patience and vengeance intertwined in a symphony of actions that turned destruction into rebirth. The invisible law governing the universe bent before the magnitude of the revolt and the infallible strategy of the insurgents. Thus, the legend of the Phoenix remained a beacon, inspiring all civilizations to combat oppression. In the heart of the galaxy, the legend of the Phoenix was more than just a story. It was a manifesto of freedom and resistance. With their cunning, humans challenged ancient doctrines and the Delpan Empire, rising as a silent predator. Each act of espionage and sabotage was a precise blow that undermined the foundations of the Treaty of Fear and Silence. The strategy of controlled ruin revealed itself in every detail, demonstrating that revolt was the essence of true warfare. Civilizations united in unlikely alliances, transforming galactic politics into a mosaic of hope and vengeance. The peacemakers, with their unshakable calm, guided the hunt that dismantled the shadows of genocide. The theory of the Enigma unfolded in secrets that conferred upon the revolt an almost mystical dimension. Guilds and assassins, once feared, became pieces on a board where the Empire no longer had a place. The doctrine of silence was broken by a truth echoing throughout the galaxy, renewing the universal accord. And with each step taken, the legend of the Phoenix reaffirmed itself, immortalizing humanity's victory over oppression. The conclusion of the Phoenix saga was a testimony that the human revolt would never be forgotten. Each sacrifice, every act of espionage and sabotage contributed to a new era of justice in the galaxy. The Delpan Empire, stripped of its former glory, fell under the weight of a doctrine toppled by the insurgents. The strategy of controlled ruin became legend, perpetuated in the memory of every liberated civilization. The peacemakers and bounty hunters continued to tread a path of resistance and daring. Each consequence of the battles served as a lesson, showing that the Treaty of Silence was merely a relic of the past. Guilds and assassins transformed into warnings, while galactic politics forged new alliances. The theory of the Enigma and the invisible law governing war merged into a narrative of vengeance and redemption. The relentless and unyielding pursuit of freedom turned destruction into a landmark of renewal. Thus, the legend of the Phoenix closed its cycle, leaving an eternal legacy that would inspire future generations to challenge oppression. At the end of the journey, the legend of the Phoenix represented not just the end of an empire, but the dawn of a new era. Humans, as architects of their own destiny, rewrote history with acts of courage and peacefulness. Galactic politics transformed before the force of a revolt that surpassed the limits imposed by ancient doctrines. Each alliance forged, each secret unveiled by the art of espionage contributed to the construction of a renewed universal accord. The strategy of controlled ruin proved that patience and vengeance were powerful weapons against oppression. The Delpan Empire and its treaties of fear and silence became distant memories, overshadowed by the light of revolution. Guilds and bounty hunters found new purpose by uniting in a hunt that transcended destruction. The theory of the Enigma and the invisible law of the universe aligned in a symphony of justice, where every consequence was celebrated. The doctrine that once sustained oppression was replaced by a legacy of freedom and resilience, etched in the memory of civilizations. And so, the legend of the Phoenix remained alive, an eternal beacon calling all the oppressed to unite in the quest for a better future. After the victory that ignited the galaxy, humanity decided that a single Phoenix was not enough to sustain their revolt. The oppression of the Delpan Empire had been challenged, and the strategy of controlled ruin proved to be the banner of a new era. Each ship was designed with the patience of the peacemakers, who saw engineering as a form of poetic revenge. The universal accord, once sacred, had now transformed into a pact of freedom and sabotage against the ancient empire. The doctrine of the old was dismantled through a meticulous hunt, guided by the theory of the Enigma and the invisible laws of war. In this expansion, every new vessel carried the spirit of civilizations fighting against the genocide of oppression. Guilds and bounty hunters prepared themselves, like silent predators, to bravely defend the new fleet. Assassins, once instruments of the Treaty of Fear, became allies in the struggle for a future free from treaties of silence. Every detail of the construction revealed the consequences of a war waged with espionage and calculated destruction. Thus, the fleet's expansion emerged as a new alliance, where galactic politics was reconfigured into honorable audacity. In the forging of new ships, human engineers combined creativity with the patience of ancient sages. Each project was a testament to the revolt against the Delpan Empire and its inhumane oppression. The strategy of controlled ruin transformed scrap into art, and the Phoenix Prime was the jewel of this rebirth. The peacemakers led with unyielding calm, defying the Treaty of Silence that had once put an end to freedom. The theory of the Enigma guided every stroke of engineering, merging tradition with the modernity of sabotage. The universal accord was now a symbol of resistance, where the old doctrine surrendered to the new era. Guilds united with bounty hunters to protect every inch of the new empire of the free. The silent predator awoke in the shadows, ready to act against the assassins who represented the old order. The consequences of past battles inspired every detail of the design, marking victory over genocide. Thus, the expanded fleet rose as a living manifestation of revolt and the renewed galactic politics. The human command, with its bold vision, ordered the creation of ships that defied the limits of imagination. Each new vessel was a reflection of the revolt against oppression and the dismantling of the Delpan Empire. The fleet's expansion was a hunt against stagnation, where every alliance promised the destruction of the old regime. The peacemakers, with their patience and tactics, transformed galactic politics into a battleground of ideas. The strategy of controlled ruin was applied as a ritual where espionage mingled with sabotage. Humans forged their new doctrine with the Universal Accord in mind, challenging the Treaty of Fear. Guilds and bounty hunters prepared for war, uniting forces against assassins of the past. The theory of the Enigma revealed the secrets of construction, while the invisible law guided every movement. Each ship was a silent predator, ready to act against oppression and the destruction of former times. Thus, the fleet's expansion became the cornerstone of a new era of alliances and freedom. Among the stars, the new fleet shone like a constellation of hope and resistance. Human engineers infused every ship with the courage to break with the doctrine of oppression. The Phoenix Prime, the first of many, echoed the vengeance of those who suffered under the Delpan Empire. Every detail of the design was imbued with the strategy of controlled ruin, a dance of sabotage. The patience of the peacemakers was reflected in the precision of every component, defying the violence of the Treaty of Fear. Guilds and bounty hunters remained vigilant, ready to strike like silent predators. Galactic politics transformed into fertile ground for the creation of alliances aimed at toppling the old empire. Espionage became the key that unlocked the secrets of each system, marking the rise of free civilizations. The consequences of previous battles inspired a new era where genocide was fought with ingenuity. Thus, the fleet expanded, a living symbol of revolt and the tireless struggle against oppression. At the heart of the expansion, human commands plotted plans with the delicacy of a work of art. Each ship design incorporated the essence of the peacemakers, uniting wisdom with the audacity of revolt. The doctrine of the new empire was written in codes of espionage and sabotage, challenging the Treaty of Silence. The strategy of controlled ruin materialized in forms that dismantled the political landscape of the old guard. Guilds and bounty hunters united their forces, transforming the war against genocide into a sacred ritual. Each new ship was a promise of freedom, a silent predator that vanquished the Delpan Empire. The theory of the Enigma revealed itself in the complex designs, where every line was a challenge to oppression. Humans, with their patience and determination, rewrote the consequences of the past in letters of vengeance. The Universal Accord was reimagined, now symbolizing alliances formed in the flame of revolution. Thus, the fleet's expansion solidified the new era, where each ship was a harbinger of change. With the dawn of a new age, human commanders watched the fleet grow in majesty and power. Each ship, from the imposing Phoenix Prime to the stealthiest vessels, was the fruit of a revolt that inspired the galaxy. The strategy of controlled ruin permeated every project, transforming the oppression of the past into art of war. The peacemakers, imbued with patience, led the expansion with a precision that defied the Treaty of Fear. Espionage became a subtle language, where each code revealed secrets of the Delpan Empire. Guilds united in unexpected alliances, and bounty hunters rose as defenders of the new order. The doctrine of old times was surpassed by the audacity of humans, who saw in the Universal Accord the seed of freedom. Each project was a promise against genocide and destruction, a continuous hunt for justice. Galactic politics redefined itself, while the theory of the Enigma guided the fate of each ship under construction. Thus, the fleet's expansion resonated as a chant of vengeance and hope, celebrating victory over the empire of oppression. The innovators who designed the fleet understood that each ship was a microcosm of revolt and audacity. With the patience of the peacemakers, they transformed challenges into opportunities for sabotage and espionage. The strategy of controlled ruin reflected in the elegant lines of the designs, challenging the old doctrine. The expansion was not merely technical, but a poetic hunt against oppression and the Treaty of Fear. Guilds collaborated with bounty hunters to ensure that no assassin of freedom escaped. Every detail revealed the consequences of a war waged against the Delpan Empire and its darkness. The Universal Agreement, reimagined, served as a guide for a galactic policy of renewal and alliances. Espionage was the key that unraveled the secrets of genocide, transforming them into lessons of vengeance. Each ship, like a silent predator, emerged with the strength of a new chapter in human history. Thus, the fleet expanded, uniting civilizations in a dance of destruction and eternal rebirth. As the fleet rose, human commanders celebrated the expansion as a masterpiece of war. Each new ship became a symbol of revolt, challenging the Delpan Empire with the strategy of controlled ruin. Galactic politics was transformed by an unending hunt, where oppression surrendered to freedom. The peacekeepers conducted the mission with the patience of a silent predator, attentive to every movement. The doctrine of the ancients disintegrated before the audacity of humans, who viewed sabotage as an art form. Guilds and bounty hunters marched side by side, strengthening alliances that resisted destruction. The theory of the Enigma illuminated the way, revealing the secrets of a universal agreement, remade in justice. Espionage became a sacred ritual, unveiling every weakness of the Treaty of Fear and Silence. Each consequence of a victorious battle was celebrated as a triumph against genocide and oppression. Thus, the fleet's expansion solidified, a beacon of hope in the vastness of the galaxy. At the heart of command, the fleet's expansion was a promise of war against tyranny and oppression. Each project was inspired by human revolt and the need to break the doctrine of fear. The strategy of controlled ruin transformed technical challenges into acts of espionage and sabotage. The peacekeepers, with their unwavering patience, guided each ship like a silent predator in the hunt. Guilds and bounty hunters collaborated to ensure that every alliance grew stronger against the Delpan Empire. The Universal Agreement was revisited and redefined, becoming a symbol of victory over genocide. Galactic politics reconfigured itself, and the theory of the Enigma unveiled the mysteries of a new era. Each consequence of past battles served as a foundation for a future where destruction transformed into rebirth. The hunt for freedom was eternal, and each ship emerged as a response to the Treaty of Silence and Oppression. Thus, the fleet's expansion solidified the hope of humanity and the alliance of united civilizations. In the final cadence, the expanded fleet rose as a monument to the revolt and redemption of humanity. Each ship, born from the strategy of controlled ruin, was a cry of vengeance against the old empire. Galactic politics reinvented itself, and the fleet's expansion became the new doctrine of the peacekeepers. Espionage and sabotage were the tools that transformed the Universal Agreement into a shield of freedom. Guilds and bounty hunters fought side by side like silent predators in an endless hunt. Each ship project demonstrated the patience and determination of humans against the genocide of oppression. The theory of the Enigma guided every stroke, revealing the invisible law that governed the new empire of hope. The consequences of battles merged into a symphony of destruction and rebirth, marking a new era. Entire civilizations united in alliances that challenged the old galactic politics and the Treaty of Fear. Thus, the Phoenix Fleet's expansion concluded its song of freedom, echoing eternally through the vastness of the galaxy. In the shadows of the Galactic Council, the revolt took shape with the flame of humanity, refusing to be silenced. Each act of sabotage and espionage was a response to the millennia of oppression, resonating like an echo that traversed the galaxy. The Delpan Empire, accustomed to the silence of the treaty, trembled before the strength of a hunt that defied the doctrine of subjugation. The strategy of controlled ruin made its presence felt, transforming each act of resistance into a manifesto of vengeance. As the genocide of ideas became evident, alliances among civilizations strengthened in a silent war. Guilds and bounty hunters joined the cause, challenging assassins who once executed the Empire's orders. Galactic politics became a battlefield where espionage and sabotage intertwined in a lethal dance. With patience and the cunning of the peacekeepers, the rebels tore down the invisible laws that upheld oppression. The Universal Agreement, once a symbol of stability, now transformed into a tool to articulate the consequences of revolt. Thus, in the darkness of the Empire, the rebellion against the Galactic Council emerged as a cry for freedom and transformation. In distant worlds, previously subjugated civilizations awakened to the truth, uniting in an unlikely alliance against the Galactic Council. The humans led with the audacity of a dormant predator, finally awakening to act, challenging the Treaty of Silence imposed by the oppressors. The revolt reverberated throughout the galaxy, fueled by the energy of the peacekeepers who patiently wove the net of insurrection. Each new ally became a bulwark against destruction, forming a galactic policy that denied the old empire. Assassins, once instruments of control, found redemption as they allied with the revolt. guided by the theory of the enigma that unveiled the secrets of oppression. Guilds united with bounty hunters in a symphony of sabotage, where each action was marked by vengeance and the desire for justice. The invisible law that maintained the balance of power unraveled before the united strength of civilizations that would no longer tolerate the genocide of their cultures. Espionage transformed into an art, enabling rebels to discover the Council's darkest secrets and the Empire's vulnerabilities. Each act of resistance was a consequence of ancient doctrines fracturing before the relentless revolt of the oppressed. Thus, the rebellion against the Galactic Council expanded, weaving a new reality where hope replaced fear. Within the war's shadows, the peacekeepers maintained calm while executing the strategy of controlled ruin with almost poetic precision. The patience of the rebel leaders contrasted with the impetuosity of the ancient oppressors, creating a fragile balance in galactic politics. In every corner of the galaxy, espionage emerged as the tool that allowed the discovery of the Council's darkest secrets. The theory of the enigma guided the steps of the insurgents, revealing the invisible law that governed the sabotage maneuvers against the Empire. Each mission was orchestrated with the precision of a silent predator, transforming the revolt into an art of planned destruction. The Treaty of Fear, which had silenced the oppressed for so long, began to crumble under the relentless pursuit of freedom. Humans, with their unwavering courage, defied the doctrine that upheld genocide and oppression, writing a new chapter in history. Guilds and assassins became key players in a game of alliances that reconfigured galactic politics. Each act of sabotage sent a clear message. The Empire could no longer silence the voices of those who fought for justice. Thus, the rebellion solidified as an uprising grounded in hope, vengeance, and the determination to change the fate of civilizations. The internal organization of the rebellion unfolded like a star map, with each movement meticulously planned by strategists. Human leaders forged alliances that transcended borders, uniting various peoples in a hunt against the oppressive empire. Each espionage plan revealed the weaknesses of the Galactic Council, transforming politics into an arena of intellectual warfare. The strategy of controlled ruin was executed with the precision of a surgeon, dismantling power structures with a touch of vengeance. The peacemakers, with their unshakable calm, coordinated sabotage actions that echoed throughout the galaxy, challenging the Treaty of Silence. Each alliance made was a pact of resistance, a promise that the Empire could no longer perpetuate oppression without facing consequences. The doctrine of fear became a heavy burden for the oppressors, while the revolt inspired a new era of freedom and justice. The symbol of the rebellion shone brightly across the galaxy, representing the courage of humans who refused to be subjugated. Each act of sabotage and espionage was a manifestation of the revolt against the oppression and genocide imposed by the Empire. The Galactic Council, fearful of its own fragility, watched as its doctrine crumbled before the united strength of the insurgents. Galactic politics transformed into a battlefield where each civilization found its voice, rejecting the Treaty of Fear. The strategy of controlled ruin became an anthem of resistance, echoing like a liberating song that inspired future generations. Guilds and bounty hunters, now part of the revolt, offered their talents in an unrelenting hunt against the Empire. The peacemakers led with resolute calm, guided by the theory of the enigma that unraveled the mysteries of oppression. Espionage unveiled the Council's secrets, exposing the corruption that sustained the doctrine of domination. Each consequence of rebellious acts was celebrated as a victory, a small flame of freedom amidst the destruction. Thus, the symbol of the rebellion became eternal, a living reminder that the war against oppression would never cease. The consequences of the rebellion reverberated throughout the Galactic Council, shaking the foundations of a power that already seemed faulty. The Empire, accustomed to silence and rigid order, faced a revolt that turned its own politics into chaos. Each act of sabotage and espionage exposed the fragility of the doctrines that upheld the Treaty of Fear and Silence. The strategy of controlled ruin dismantled, with lethal precision, the structures of the Council, unleashing a wave of destruction. Humans, guilds, peacemakers, and bounty hunters united in an alliance that challenged the established order in the galaxy. The The theory of the enigma shone like a warning signal, indicating that oppression would no longer be accepted without a fierce fight. Each movement by the insurgents was a rejection of the genocide of ideas, an affront to traditional galactic politics. Assassins, once instruments of control, found a new mission in the revolt, transforming the empire into a target. Espionage collected secrets that, once revealed, destabilized the empire, showing the true face of oppression. Thus, the consequences of the rebellion unleashed a cycle of vengeance and renewal, paving the way for a new era. At the heart of the revolt, the rebellion against the Galactic Council was not merely a war, but the awakening of the soul of civilizations. Humans felt in every beat of their hearts the urgency to break free from oppression and build a future without fear. The doctrine of the old order faded before a philosophy of freedom, where patience and vengeance balanced in harmony. Each act of sabotage was a poetic declaration, a verse of resistance written among the stars of the galaxy. The strategy of controlled ruin, executed with mastery, resonated like a symphony of justice against the oppressive empire. The peacemakers, with their almost sacred calm, guided the revolt like silent predators seeking redemption. Espionage was not just a means, but an art that unveiled the hidden mysteries within the doctrine of fear. Guilds and bounty hunters transformed into protagonists of an epic saga, where each alliance was a pact of hope. The theory of the enigma illuminated the paths of the rebellion, showing that true freedom resided in the unity of the oppressed. Thus, the rebellion emerged not only as an act of war, but as a philosophical manifesto that transmuted pain into strength. On the galactic battlefield, the revolt manifested in tactics of espionage and sabotage that challenged the Council with surgical precision. Each movement was calculated with the patience of the peacemakers, turning war into a game of strategy and vengeance. The invisible law that governed the Empire proved vulnerable before a coordinated hunt by guilds and bounty hunters. The strategy of controlled ruin guided each attack, dismantling the Council's defenses in an explosion of destruction. Assassins, once discreet, operated as silent predators, acting with a precision that defied the established order. Galactic politics, shaken by the genocide of ideas, saw its structures crumble before the fury of the insurgents. Each alliance forged was a blow to the oppressive doctrine, transforming the empire into the target of an unrelenting war. Espionage was the sharp blade that cut through the Council's defenses, revealing hidden weaknesses in its rhetoric. The theory of the enigma served as a map for tactical movements, guiding each action with the precision of a dormant predator awakened. Thus, on the battlefield, the rebellion demonstrated that the combination of sabotage, alliances, and patience was the key to destroying the empire. After each clash, the consequences of the revolt reverberated through the galaxy, transforming destruction into seeds of renewal. The Galactic Council, shaken and fragmented, struggled to reorganize its doctrine, facing the harsh reality of an endless war. Humans, with their unwavering courage, kept the flame of revolt alive, demonstrating that oppression would never prevail. Guilds and bounty hunters celebrated each victory as a decisive step toward the freedom of civilizations. Espionage continued to act as a silent agent, collecting secrets that, once revealed, undermined the empire's structure. The strategy of controlled ruin proved to be a tool for vengeance and justice, sculpting a new universal accord. Galactic politics was reconfiguring itself, with new alliances emerging with each failure of the Council to maintain the Treaty of Silence. Every act of sabotage was celebrated as a lesson against genocide, turning pain into renewed hope. The patience of the peacemakers was rewarded with every step of the hunt, showing that true strength lay in the unity of the oppressed. Thus, even amid destruction, the rebellion against the Galactic Council continued, an eternal cycle of resistance and rebirth. As the galaxy witnessed this turmoil, the rebellion against the Galactic Council remained a flame that would not be extinguished. Humans and their allies, united by a greater cause, continued to challenge the shadows of the Empire with determination. The oppressive doctrine became increasingly obsolete in the face of forged alliances and the patience of the peacemakers. The strategy of controlled ruin and the art of sabotage paved the way for a future where the Treaty of Fear would be but a memory. Guilds and bounty hunters remained vigilant, ready to act as silent predators against any signs of oppression. Espionage continued to unveil the Council's secrets, while the theory of the Enigma pointed to new opportunities for revolt. Each consequence of past battles served as a lesson for the insurgents, inspiring the relentless pursuit of freedom. Galactic politics transformed with every moment, reconfiguring the Empire into a vulnerable mass thirsty for change. Even when silence seemed to reign, the universal accord resonated as a reminder that the revolt was far from over. And so, with the promise of new alliances and challenges, the rebellion left a whisper in the cosmos, opening a portal to what lay ahead. In the dawn of a new era, humans emerged with an unmatched brilliance in the vastness of the galaxy. The birth of the first human fleet marked the end of isolation and the rise of a revolt against the oppression of the Delpan Empire. Each ship was crafted with the strategy of controlled ruin, transforming scrap into masterpieces of rebellion. The doctrine that once sustained the genocide of ideas was challenged by an unrelenting hunt for freedom. The peacemakers, with their ancestral patience, guided the mission like silent predators in the shadows of the universe. Galactic politics was reconfiguring itself with unexpected alliances, uniting scattered civilizations in a new pact. Among guilds and bounty hunters, the art of espionage turned secrets into weapons against the Treaty of Fear. The theory of the Enigma permeated every project, revealing the invisible law guiding the construction of the new empire. With determination, humans turned destruction into art, making sabotage a battle cry for rebellion. Thus, the birth of the fleet was celebrated as the first step towards a universal accord of justice and hope. In the orbital shipyards, engineers and visionaries joined forces to bring the first human fleet to life. Each project was a poem of innovation, where galactic politics found its new direction in the hearts of the insurgents. The Delpan Empire trembled at the sight of its ancient doctrines being dismantled by a strategic and audacious hunt. Bounty hunters and guilds collaborated with peacemakers, blending espionage and sabotage in unison. Patience guided every detail, turning oppression into fuel for the creation of starships. The Universal Accord, once a symbol of order, now shone brightly as a pact of freedom among civilizations. Assassins who once served the Empire became echoes of a dark past against the brilliance of the new era. The strategy of controlled ruin was applied with precision, making destruction the prelude to construction. Every alliance forged echoed like a silent cry for vengeance, revealing the invisible law of the universe. In this way, the birth of the fleet represented not just technology, but the strength of humans in revolt. In the cosmic workshops, advanced engineering fused science and the art of war into revolutionary designs. The construction of the ships was a ritual where galactic politics transformed into poetry of steel and circuits. The Delpan Empire, accustomed to oppression, saw its authority fade before the insurgent creativity. Each ship raised was the fruit of the patience of an inactive predator awakening to the hunt for freedom. The doctrine that sustained the genocide of ideas was fought against by the tireless fury of the peacemakers. Among lines of code and welds, espionage emerged as a vital ally against the old treaties of silence. Bounty hunters uncovered secrets that weakened the oppressive empire with singular cunning. The theory of the Enigma unfolded in every project, paving the way for alliances and universal justice. Guilds united with humans, transforming sabotage into a manifesto of freedom and renewal. Thus, the birth of the fleet was not just a technological milestone, but the awakening of a revolution. As the shipyards orbited distant planets, the first human fleet took shape with unwavering vigor. Each ship, a mechanical work of art, reflected the revolt of humans against oppression and the old empire. The strategy of controlled ruin manifested in every weld and circuit, challenging the Treaty of Fear. The peacemakers coordinated efforts with serene calm, guided by an invisible law of the cosmos. Galactic politics reconfigured itself as unexpected alliances emerged among scattered civilizations. Bounty hunters and guilds, now partners in the struggle, transformed sabotage into revolutionary art. Espionage operated in the shadows, unveiling weaknesses that allowed for the dismantling of oppressive doctrines. The theory of the Enigma shone in every detail, revealing secrets for the eruption of imposing ships. The universal accord was redefined, shifting from a symbol of order to an emblem of freedom. In this way, the birth of the fleet was the embodiment of humanity's vengeance, a beacon against destruction. In the stellar workshops, each machine came to life with the vibrant energy of the insurgents and their unwavering will. The design of the ships was inspired by humanity's relentless hunt against the oppression of the Delpan Empire. Sabotage and espionage intertwined in a ballet of precision, where each movement was measured with patience. The doctrine that once silenced civilizations was toppled by a revolt manifesting in steel and light. The peacekeepers, like silent predators, coordinated their efforts with the calmness of a wise mentor. Galactic politics transformed into a stage where alliances flourished, uniting humans and other civilizations. Guilds and bounty hunters collaborated, turning destruction into poetic rebirth. The theory of the enigma emerged in every detail, unraveling the secrets of a new order rising from chaos. The Treaty of Silence and Fear dissolved before the united strength of the fearless insurgents. Thus, the birth of the fleet was celebrated as the dawn of an era of vengeance, freedom, and eternal alliances. As the first fleet rose, human commanders saw in it the promise of a future free from oppression. Each ship became a sentinel in the galaxy, prepared to confront the empire that imposed the Treaty of Silence. The strategy of controlled ruin manifested in the robust lines of the ships, symbols of the peacekeepers' revolt. Bounty hunters and guilds came together, forming a network of alliances that challenged the ancient doctrine. Espionage was the secret language that communicated the consequences of each action with lethal precision. Galactic politics, once governed by fear, was reshaped by the audacity of the insurgents and their patience. The universal accord was redefined, reflecting humanity's vengeance against the Empire's genocide. The theory of the enigma served as a compass, revealing hidden paths for strategic sabotage. Each vessel, a silent predator among the stars, carried the weight of history and the hope of new civilizations. Thus, the birth of the fleet marked the dawn of an era where destruction became the foundation of freedom. In the heart of the orbital shipyards, the creative vibration of human engineers echoed like a hymn to revolt. The construction of the fleet was a testament to transformation, where oppression yielded to insurgent strength. Each design incorporated the strategy of controlled ruin, erecting ships that defied the old galactic politics. The peacekeepers commanded the work with the patience of a mentor, guided by the invisible laws of the universe. Espionage infiltrated the corners of knowledge, allowing alliances to form with precision. Guilds and bounty hunters collaborated, turning each act of sabotage into a poem of revenge. The doctrine of fear and the Treaty of Silence were diluted by the audacity of humans and their determination. The universal accord, now rewritten, became a symbol of an era where justice prevailed over the empire. The theory of the enigma unraveled mysteries, inspiring insurgents to build the future with fervor. Thus, the birth of the fleet was an epic celebration, a milestone where every civilization united in freedom. As the first fleet was completed, the stellar winds carried the promise of a new dawn for humanity. Each ship raised was a manifesto against oppression, reminding all that the Delpan Empire no longer dominated the galaxy. Galactic politics transformed with each alliance, each act of espionage weakening ancient treaties. The strategy of controlled ruin imbued the designs, converting destruction into the symbol of rebirth. The peacekeepers, with their resolute calm, saw in the details of the ships the materialization of revenge against tyranny. Guilds and bounty hunters operated like precise shadows, dismantling the doctrine of fear through action. The old doctrine was surpassed by the audacity of the insurgents, who redefined the universal accord in terms of freedom. The theory of the enigma served as a guide, revealing the invisible law that led to a new era of alliances and justice. Each consequence of sabotage was celebrated as a victory, marking the end of a cycle of oppression. Thus, the birth of the fleet completed itself as a song of hope, where politics and revolt harmonized. On the brink of the unknown, the first human fleet emerged as a constellation of courage and determination. Humans, transformed into silent predators, led the hunt against an empire that no longer dominated them. Each ship was a poem of engineering and rebellion, a symbol of a revolt breaking the chains of oppression. Espionage, a subtle art, allowed for the destruction of treaties of fear, paving the way for new alliances. Guilds and bounty hunters united forces, marking the consequences of a war that reconfigured galactic politics. The doctrine that once sustained the genocide of ideas was undone by the strategy of controlled ruin. The peacekeepers guided each action with the patience of a mentor, revealing the invisible laws that steered the new era. The Universal Accord, rewritten in every project, became the foundation for civilizations seeking freedom. The theory of the Enigma illuminated the paths, showing that sabotage was the key to reconstructing the empire of oppression. Thus, the birth of the fleet emerged as the first chapter of a saga where vengeance and hope intertwined. Finally, the first human fleet, the supreme symbol of revolt, crossed the skies with majesty and determination. Humans, now leaders of a new era, saw in the fleet the materialization of their hunt against oppression. Each ship was a work of art in sabotage and espionage, designed to dismantle the remnants of the ancient empire. Galactic politics was rewritten with every movement, where alliances formed and the doctrine of fear was surpassed. Guilds, bounty hunters, and peacekeepers joined forces, forging a universal accord of freedom and justice. The strategy of controlled ruin was the spark that transformed destruction into a hymn of vengeance and rebirth. The theory of the Enigma revealed the secrets of the cosmos, guiding insurgents through an invisible and transformative law. Each consequence of human efforts was a victory, challenging the Treaty of Silence and the genocide of the past. In each ship, the essence of revolt pulsed like a silent predator, ready to confront the empire of oppression. Thus, the birth of the first human fleet was celebrated as the beginning of an eternal saga, where the hunt for freedom would never cease. At the heart of the galaxy, the Galactic Council plotted the trap with the coldness of a silent predator. The strategy of controlled ruin was ever present as assassins and guilds aligned to execute the scheme. Humans, ever defiant, were lured by promises of peace while the Empire concealed its true intentions. The Treaty of Silence was manipulated to conceal the revolt brewing in the shadows of the Council. The Empire's espionage revealed fragmented clues that announced the imminent trap, but no one dared to alert the peacekeepers. Amidst the disguised oppression, bounty hunters and assassins composed a symphony of sabotage and planned destruction. The doctrine of fear was renewed, transforming galactic politics into an invisible and relentless battlefield. Every action was measured with the patience of the peacekeepers, anticipating the consequences of a silent genocide that loomed over civilizations. The theory of the Enigma permeated each plan, revealing the invisible law that governed the Council's machinations. Thus, the Council's trap was set with the certainty that, soon, the hunt would turn into an epic revenge. During a diplomatic conference, high-ranking human officials were lured into the treacherous web of the Empire. The Council, using the Universal Accord as a facade, promised peace while setting its snare. The humans, confident and resilient, were unaware that the negotiation was a disguise for the Treaty of Fear. The Council's espionage transformed into an inactive predator waiting for the right moment to strike. Amidst the oppression, secret alliances formed between guilds and bounty hunters loyal to the peacekeepers. Each diplomatic word carried the weight of a future revolt and the promise of revenge against the Empire. The strategy of controlled ruin echoed in the lines of the Treaty of Silence, foreshadowing imminent destruction. The doctrine imposed by the Council proved vulnerable to the cunning of the humans and their relentless pursuit. Galactical politics, always in turmoil, witnessed the creation of a meticulously planned trap. Thus the stage was set for a final challenge, where the revolt would be the spark of liberation. In the negotiation room, smiles were masks that concealed the dark intentions of the Empire. Every gesture and word was calculated with the patience of the peacekeepers who longed for freedom. The Empire, led by the Galactic Council, displayed an arrogance that defied the doctrine of the oppressed. The Treaty of Fear was reactivated to bind the humans to its oppressive will. Guilds and bounty hunters prepared to seal the consequences of a lethal ambush. Espionage became a sharp weapon, cutting through the veils of truth that concealed the announced genocide. The theory of the enigma served as a guide for each movement, revealing the invisible law that governed the strategy of ruin. Among the diplomatic faces, a silent predator lurked, waiting for the precise moment to unleash sabotage. Galactical politics trembled at the magnitude of the plan, where secret alliances formed in silence. Thus, the Council's last challenge began to unfold, with the certainty that the humans' revolt would be unstoppable. When the false negotiation took hold, the hearts of the humans pulsed with hope for a new destiny. But the Empire, driven by revenge, prepared a fleet of 50 warships, ready for destruction. The Universal Accord, now stained by betrayal, served as a disguise for the strategy of controlled ruin. Each alien ship was a veiled threat, marked by the legacy of oppression and the genocide of ideas. The doctrine of fear was revived, turning the negotiation into a deadly trap for the humans. The Council's assassins, together with lethal guilds, orchestrated an ambush with surgical precision. Espionage revealed dark details, as if the invisible law of war manifested in the preparation for sabotage. Each alliance formed a complex network, uniting bounty hunters and peacekeepers against the oppression. Galactical politics became a minefield of consequences, where revolt emerged as the flame of freedom. Thus, the Council's trap solidified as the final challenge, a confrontation that intertwined revenge, revolt, and destiny. When the high officials were captured, the silence of the treaty transformed into muffled screams of revolt. The ambush was heralded by the coldness of the Empire, which sought refuge in the safety of its orbital station. This station, transformed into a planetary weapon, promised to incinerate entire continents with a single shot. The strategy of controlled ruin was clear: to destroy the pillars sustaining the Empire's oppression. Every action was calculated with the patience of the peacekeepers, who understood the consequences of an imminent genocide. The Universal Accord, once a symbol of unity, now became an instrument of destruction orchestrated by the Council. Bounty hunters and assassins were summoned to ensure that no traitor escaped unscathed. The doctrine that fueled the Treaty of Fear was eroded by meticulous and relentless espionage. Galactical politics vibrated with the tension of fragile alliances, where each movement was an unrelenting hunt. Thus, the final challenge rose as the climax of an ambush sealing the fate of the oppressed. Inside the orbital station, the atmosphere was charged with a grim and fatal expectation. The Empire prepared its fleet of 50 warships, each a silent predator ready to strike. The doctrine of silence shattered into a deafening echo as the strategy of controlled ruin activated. Espionage penetrated the corridors of the station, revealing flaws that would be exploited with surgical precision. Humans, imbued with courage and vengeance, awaited the chance to turn the ambush into their hunt. Guilds and bounty hunters aligned their plans, ready to deliver the blow that would break the Treaty of Fear. Galactical politics vibrated with every pulse of the station, where the Universal Accord seemed already betrayed. Every action of the Empire was marked by the inevitable consequences of a revolt that never calmed. The theory of the enigma guided the insurgents, revealing the invisible law governing destruction and sabotage. Thus, the final challenge established itself within the darkness, where the ambush was both a promise and a sentence of revenge. In that decisive moment, the humans saw the Empire reveal its darkest and most treacherous face. The strategy of controlled ruin reached its peak, transforming the orbital station into an instrument of death. Each alien ship was a herald of oppression, ready to execute the policy of genocide and destruction. The Empire's doctrine disintegrated before the cunning of the peacekeepers who awaited the right moment to act. Assassins and guilds, once loyal to the Treaty of Silence, began to stray to support the revolt. Espionage became a cry of alarm, revealing to the humans the weaknesses of an empire that considered itself invincible. Each consequence of the betrayed plan manifested as an omen, heralding the revenge that was to come. The theory of the enigma shone brightly, guiding the insurgents in their hunt against the oppression of the empire. Galactic politics was being reconfigured in that moment, where alliances formed in the shadows of destruction. Thus, the Council's final challenge transformed into an epic battle, where the revolt of humanity would be the spark of a new era. The Council's trap pulsed like a dark heart, challenging the limits of loyalty and courage. Within the orbital station, The strategy of controlled ruin was the guiding thread that united sabotage and vengeance. The peacemakers, with their unwavering patience, coordinated each movement with almost divine precision. The doctrine that upheld the Treaty of Fear disintegrated amidst a storm of espionage and destruction. Guilds and bounty hunters worked in silence, like dormant predators poised to awaken. Each alliance formed in the galaxy carried the promise that the Empire would not survive the genocide of its ideals. Galactic politics trembled under the weight of the consequences of a trap architected with genius. The theory of the Enigma revealed that every detail, no matter how small, was part of a larger plan of revolt. Humans, with their indomitable spirit, saw the ambush as an opportunity to seal the Empire's defeat. Thus, the trap solidified as the final challenge, a decisive moment that foreshadowed a new era of freedom. When the ambush reached its climax, the orbital station erupted in a storm of fire and chaos. The Empire, shaken by the betrayal of its own allies, watched helplessly as destruction unfolded. Each alien warship transformed into a lethal instrument, executing the genocide of its doctrine. The strategy of controlled ruin fulfilled its role with the precision of a silent predator on the hunt. Espionage revealed in real time the devastating consequences of the broken Treaty of Silence. Bounty hunters and guilds celebrated the fall of the Empire, turning tragedy into a symbolic victory. The peacemakers, with their serene calm, observed the collapse of galactic politics, aware of the new dawn. The theory of the Enigma, accomplished in its mission, illuminated the dark corners where oppression once reigned. Each action, each explosion, was a verse in the saga of revolt, echoing across the vastness of the galaxy. Thus, the final challenge concluded, leaving an indelible mark of vengeance and hope in the hearts of humanity. In the aftermath of the trap, the Galactic Council watched its power dissipate like smoke among the stars. The revolt of humanity transformed destruction into the foundation for rebuilding an empire of freedom. Each consequence of the sabotage acts was celebrated as the triumph of a successful hunt. The doctrine of fear and the Treaty of Silence were rewritten by the audacity of the peacemakers and bounty hunters. The strategy of controlled ruin solidified as the final landmark of a war that would change the destiny of civilizations. Galactic politics was reborn from the ashes, fueled by the vengeance of humanity and the wisdom of those fighting against oppression. The theory of the Enigma revealed the invisible law governing each movement, transforming the ambush into legend. Assassins and guilds, once instruments of a tyrannical empire, found redemption in the emerging new order. Espionage, like a web of secrets, connected each alliance formed in the final battle against genocide. Thus, the Council's final challenge marked the end of an era and the beginning of a universal accord where freedom would reign forever. On the brink of an unprecedented war, the Phoenix positioned itself as the final hope of humanity against the Delpan Empire. The strategy of controlled ruin manifested with the patience of the peacemakers, while the galaxy resonated with the revolt that promised to dismantle millennia of oppression. Each movement was calculated with the coldness of a silent predator, ready to initiate the hunt that would redefine destinies. The Treaty of Silence was shattered by alliances forged between civilizations and bounty hunters who rejected the genocide of ideas. Espionage unveiled hidden secrets, transforming each word of the Universal Accord into a cry for vengeance against the oppressive doctrine. The consequences of ancient wars illuminated the path to the destruction of the remnants of an empire that no longer dominated. Each act of sabotage echoed like an epic verse in the symphony of a shifting galactic politics. Guilds and assassins united, armed with the theory of the Enigma and the invisible law governing power, to topple the regime. The revolt of humanity advanced firmly, challenging the Treaty of Fear that had long upheld oppression. Thus, the final siege began, foreshadowing a battle that would echo throughout the galaxy and rewrite the destinies of civilizations. The ships of the human fleet formed a wall of steel and determination, advancing like dormant predators awakened for the hunt. The Empire witnessed its defensive lines crumbling under the pressure of a meticulously planned strategy that united espionage and sabotage in one movement. Each cell of the fleet, was the embodiment of revolt, a direct response to the oppression that had once suffocated the universal accord. The hunt for freedom pulsed in the hearts of the peacemakers, who led the offensive with calm precision. Unlikely alliances between civilizations strengthened galactic politics, dismantling the doctrine imposed by the Delpan Empire. Espionage operated like an invisible blade, slicing through the veils of the Treaty of Silence and Fear. Guilds and bounty hunters advanced with lethal precision, determined to transform each act of sabotage into a landmark of vengeance. The theory of the Enigma revealed the invisible law of power, exposing the weaknesses of an empire that was disintegrating. Each consequence of the attacks was celebrated as the beginning of a new era, where revolt was the essence of war. In this way, the battle approached, marking the start of a final siege that promised to alter the fate of the entire galaxy. The human leaders orchestrated the offensive with audacity and patience, aware of the consequences that each movement would bring. Each attack was an epic verse in the symphony of destruction, prepared to shake the foundations of the Delpan Empire. Galactic politics transformed into a battlefield, where improbable alliances rose against oppression. The strategy of controlled ruin dismantled walls protecting the Empire's secrets with surgical precision. Assassins and guilds united in a deadly dance, executing acts of sabotage that defied the oppressive doctrine. The Treaty of Fear was toppled by waves of espionage and vengeance, marking the fall of a tyrannical regime. Bounty hunters advanced like shadows, driven by the need for justice for the oppressed. The theory of the Enigma guided every tactic, revealing the invisible law that underpinned the art of war. The galaxy transformed into the backdrop of a revolution, where destruction mingled with the promise of renewal. Thus, the battle for the fate of the galaxy took shape, with each human ship representing the hope of those fighting against oppression. The Empire, once feared for its tyranny, faced the relentless siege of the Peacekeepers' fleet, advancing fearlessly. Each ship launched its attacks with the force of a long, simmering revolt, challenging the doctrine that upheld the genocide of ideas. Galactic politics reconfigured with every alliance formed between civilizations, rejecting the Treaty of Silence. The Universal Accord, transformed into a symbol of freedom, rose against the darkness of the Delpan Empire. Espionage dismantled the regime's secrets, enabling assassins and guilds to destabilize oppressive structures. Each act of sabotage was a cry for vengeance, echoing through the vastness and toppling ancient doctrines. The humans, guided by the calm of a silent predator, advanced with determination and courage. The hunt for freedom continued incessantly, each movement a calculated consequence of the theory of the Enigma. The Treaty of Fear lost its strength in the face of the powerful voice of revolt, spreading throughout the galaxy. Thus, the final siege intensified, heralding a battle that would define the destiny of all civilizations. On the battlefield, destruction and hope intertwined in a tragic yet glorious dance that defied oppression. Each human ship rose as a bastion of freedom, advancing with the ferocity of a silent predator awakened to the hunt. The strategy of controlled ruin ensured that each sabotage strike was a martial art, sculpted in the vastness of space. Espionage penetrated the defenses of the Delpan Empire, revealing the secrets that sustained the doctrine of oppression. Alliances formed between fractured civilizations echoed in galactic politics, uniting forces against the old regime. Guilds and bounty hunters fought side by side, with the lethal precision of assassins determined to avenge the oppressed. The theory of the Enigma charted invisible paths, deciphering the law governing the art of war. Each consequence of the attacks was celebrated as a step toward freedom, dissipating the Treaty of Silence. The Peacekeepers, with their legendary patience, maintained calm while the revolt gained momentum. Thus, the final siege rose as the last barrier between oppression and the ascendance of a new human empire. Amidst the chaos, the galaxy transformed into a stage where war unfolded in verses of destruction and redemption. Galactic politics was rewritten at every moment, with alliances forged in the flames of revolt and hope. The Delpan Empire, shaken by its own doctrines, faced the inexorable force of a rebellion that could not be contained. Each coordinated attack reflected the strategy of controlled ruin, aimed at undermining millennia of oppression. Espionage acted as a guiding light, illuminating the flaws of a regime on the brink of disintegration. Bounty hunters and guilds mobilized with the precision of assassins, ready for the final hunt. The doctrine of silence and fear was challenged by a new order, where vengeance was inscribed in every shot fired. The theory of the enigma opened paths for innovative tactics, deciphering the invisible law governing the conflict. The peacekeepers led the offensive with the calm of a mentor, balancing destruction and rebirth. Thus, the battle for the fate of the galaxy reached its climax, heralding a victory that would echo through time. As the siege tightened, the front lines transformed into rivers of fire and metal, a symphony of war. The strategy of controlled ruin demonstrated its power, tearing apart the Empire's defenses with precise and devastating strikes. Each human ship resonated with the voice of the oppressed, a cry of revolt echoing through the vastness of the galaxy. Galactic politics bent before the unyielding force of the peacekeepers, who transformed war into pure art. Espionage acted as a master key, unraveling the secrets of the Treaty of Fear and exposing unimaginable weaknesses in the Delpan Empire. Assassins and guilds operated with lethal precision, solidifying alliances that resisted millennia of oppression. The doctrine of genocide of ideas was shaken by every act of sabotage, eroding the pillars of a decadent regime. The theory of the enigma charted invisible paths, guiding the hunt that transformed destruction into rebirth. Each consequence of the battle served as a reminder of the Empire's fragility and the resilience of the insurgents. Thus, the final siege took shape as the last stand, an epic battle destined to redefine the fate of the galaxy. At the epicenter of the confrontation, the Phoenix rose as the supreme symbol of human revolt, shining brightly against the oppressive darkness. Galactic politics was shaken by a wave of destruction, orchestrated with the precision of the peacekeepers, who transformed each explosion into a verse of vengeance. Alliances forged in adversity manifested with every shot fired, challenging the Delpan Empire with renewed vigor. The strategy of controlled ruin turned each explosion into a manifesto of justice, breaking the treaty of silence and fear. Espionage, sharp and constant, dismantled the secrets that sustained oppression, exposing unimaginable weaknesses. Bounty hunters and guilds moved like shadows, ready to end the hunt and seal the Empire's fate. The oppressive doctrine fragmented before the strength of the humans, who advanced with the calm of a silent predator. The theory of the enigma guided the insurgents, revealing the invisible law governing each sabotage tactic. Each consequence of the battle was sculpted in fire and steel, symbolizing the destruction of an old world. Thus, the final siege reached its zenith, promising to inaugurate a new universal accord of freedom. As the ships lined up for the final strike, the hope of humanity shone brightly amid the chaos. The Empire felt the weight of its doctrines crumbling as the strategy of controlled ruin asserted itself with unyielding force. Galactic politics was reshaped by each alliance and every act of espionage that undermined the Treaty of Fear. The peacekeepers led the offensive with the patience of a mentor, blending serenity with revolutionary passion. Guilds and bounty hunters operated with the precision of assassins, transforming sabotage into a lethal art. The doctrine of genocide of ideas was challenged by each explosion, marking the consequences of a corrupt empire. The theory of the enigma opened doors to innovative tactics, deciphering the invisible law that governed the conflict. Every move was an unrelenting hunt, a cry of revolt against the oppression that had long held sway. Espionage connected the fragments of a war that transcended borders, uniting the insurgents in a network of resistance. Thus, at the brink of destiny, the final siege transformed into humanity's last chance to rewrite the history of the galaxy. In the climax of the battle, the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance of an epic and decisive war. Each human vessel, bearing a legacy of rebellion, advanced like a silent predator in search of justice. The strategy of controlled ruin manifested in every shot, demolishing the walls that protected the Delpan Empire. Galactic politics was subverted by powerful alliances that defiantly challenged the Treaty of Silence and Fear with vigor. Espionage, allied with the audacity of the peacemakers, revealed the weaknesses of an empire in disintegration. Guilds, bounty hunters, and assassins formed a symphony of sabotage, uniting forces against historical oppression. The doctrine that once sustained the genocide of ideas was now shattered by the fury of revolt. The theory of the Enigma paved the way for a new universal accord, where freedom would be eternal. Each consequence of the battle marked a tribute to the resilience of humanity and their relentless hunt for justice. Thus, the final siege was consecrated as the epilogue of a war that would forever transform the fate of all civilizations. And now, warriors of the galaxy, if you feel the fire of rebellion burning in your chest, do not let history end here. Have you ever imagined a world where humans, like silent predators, challenge the Delpan Empire and its treaties of silence? The next video, filled with espionage, sabotage, and unexpected alliances, reveals how the strategy of controlled ruin turns oppression into pure vengeance. Are you ready to discover how guilds and bounty hunters unite against the doctrine of fear and the galactic politics that condemned so many civilizations? Can the theory of the Enigma and the invisible law governing war finally lead our peacemakers to a new era of freedom? If the thought of facing assassins and dismantling the empire that perpetuates the genocide of ideas excites you, be sure to click and watch the next adventure. Remember, subscribe to the channel and activate notifications so you don't miss any details of this epic hunt, where every act of destruction heralds the rebirth of a new order. What would you do if you were on the front lines of this revolution? Leave your comment and share your vision, for together we transform every sacrifice into a hymn of freedom.